Welcome to my disgusting hotel room. Bed's not even made. The pathetic pulpit of InstaChurch. Yet here we are. Today I want to talk about mental health, but from an angle that I don't think we often approach this subject from. Let's dive in first to the existential philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, who said, there are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what isn't true. The other is to refuse to accept what is true. There's this tension that exists in our understanding of reality. The duality of man comes to life when we look at reality through this kind of lens. Are we being fooled? Or are we refusing to believe what is real? To give you some context of where I'm coming from today, you'd have to go do the work and pick up The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. Death is a conversation that we often avoid, but this is a psychoanalyst perspective, a synthesis of many psychoanalyst perspective of death and how our refusal to acknowledge it weaves its way into every inch of our lives. Our escapism, the walls of wealth that we build around ourselves to insulate ourselves from the idea of death, from latent experiences through late adulthood. We work very hard to forget that we are mortal, that we die. And oftentimes we get lost somewhere along the way in some extreme or another, while seeking to avoid that conversation, that reality. One example would be schizophrenia. This is an extreme where one, from a psychoanalyst perspective, may get lost in the infinitude, lost in the far reaches of where the imagination and the soul can go. On the other end of the spectrum would be the depressive, something I've struggled with. And this is someone who's lost in self, lost in the animal side of things. Generally, a feeling of purposelessness because there's a realization that one is a captive to those elements around them that are used to deny death. Family, the architecture of work or career, material goods, things, we become a slave to the wants of others or the needs of others. Maybe even that seed of good is where this is born out of. Yet there's a lack of purpose in one's own journey because of the enslavement that we find in the external world to the self. So one is grounded in the animal side of us. The other is lost in the infinite side of us. And we have to tackle the tension between the two. And the question becomes, does our reason transcend the body, or do we reach for the soul? What is mental health then? Is it accepting one fate or the other? Is it trying to ground ourselves in the here and now and what we can see and touch in the material, our animal side? Is it trying to reach the infinitude to some healthy degree? Mental health, in my estimation, then would be not the forgetting of one or the other to be present in the now in the body, but recognizing that we are more than just a body. And so harmonizing our life of the soul with the life of the body. I think I spent most of my life trying to punish the body for being this captor, this thing that kept my soul in chains. But I think we are created to be such that there's a harmony between the two. And once we find a way to serve both the needs of the soul, this infinite version of ourselves, where there's this higher reality, and this temporal plane that we're in now, serving lovingly the needs of this temporary, finite material body, finding a way to harmonize that, I think is where we find true mental health. There's this great quote by Pythagoras that acknowledges this tension that we're to find. It says, "Art thou fair? Be not like an Egyptian temple, varnish without and vermin within. Art thou foul? Let thy soul be like a rich pearl in a rude shell." That's what we are. And we have to recognize that, accept that, and seek to polish that rude shell to the best of our ability while recognizing the rich pearl that lies within. We see in Scripture this same kind of tension coming to life. A recognition, though, that we are not our full healthiest selves when we are cleaning and cleansing only the body, our tent, as Scripture might call it, this temporary material thing. And that there's a need to recognize that there's a glory that's outside of ourselves that needs to be tended to. In Exodus, we see near the end of Exodus this long extrapolation of the rites and rituals and instructions for the Israelites to build a temple, a temporary temple in a tent with the Ark of the Covenant, and it would be a place for the glory of God to dwell among the Israelites. They're given detailed instructions. They build this tent. But one thing we notice is that Moses doesn't enter this place. And this place is nothing more than an extension of the material goods that the Israelites donated to this cause, until the cloud, a physical manifestation of God, Yahweh, descends on this tent. And then it becomes a special place. And I think this image is the image that we are to aspire to. We are nothing more than a tent. We lack the true purpose of who we are if we refuse to accept what is true, and that we are a place to house something much more than this body. But it needs to be cared for and attended to with purpose and kind of divinely inspired instruction. We should care for our bodies the way that the Israelites cared for that tent and that temple. And then invite in, ask for, participate in the glory of God, the glory in our souls being united, being able to present itself before the throne of God in a place where suddenly this tent becomes much more. And when we tend to both in that way, I think we achieve what we're truly called to, what we're truly made to be. Spurgeon says, "Man must have some delight, some supreme pleasure. His heart was never meant to be a vacuum. If not filled with the best things, it will be filled with the unworthy and disappointing." I know that's been true for my life. I think we can all admit, if we're being honest, that when we don't fill our hearts and souls with supreme pleasures, glorying in God and relishing in the soul that we have and its work, then we will fill those spaces with the unworthy and the disappointing. I, for one, want to avoid that fate. And I hope that this conversation might inspire you, whatever your beliefs are, wherever you're coming from, to avoid that kind of worthless living as well. So that's it. That's it. A couple quotes, a little scripture, and that's InstaChurch for today in this dumpy hotel room. Maybe some good will come out of this place.